Whether it's used as decoration, as a dye source, or any other application, flowers are some of the most important elements in Minecraft. Welcome to a new video of BigBrother161, and today we will see some things about the flowers and where they come from, including the new ones from 1.20. Let's begin. Here you will see a display of every flower there is in the game, and we will see how to obtain them. These first two are probably the most common flowers in the game, the poppy and the dandelion. From these flowers we can obtain the red dye and the yellow dye respectively. These two flowers can be obtained in various places. As you see there, they are on many biomes. So we're going to start this video by showing you this small flower farm. Basically we can have this small area, come with bone meal and hit it in the middle. If these are grass blocks, you will see some grass and some flowers being generated. And the particular combination of flowers that are generated is going to depend on the place where we build this farm. So let's come downstairs and see how this works. First you're going to see this dispenser facing the grass block, and inside here we're going to place the bone meal. You're going to see this farm generate some flowers, grass, and at the same time they're going to be broken by the pistons on each side, which flip the grass blocks from one side to another. A stack of bone meal only requires a few seconds, so we come here and pick up manually all of these items. And this has been generated using only one stack of bone meal. So you see this lever, a line of redstone towards this piston, which places an observer just in front of another one. So this acts like a clock, by one side activating the dispenser, and on the other activating this line of redstone over here. This line comes to both sides, to this line of pistons and the other line of pistons. Don't forget to place your repeaters on the first tick. And the area required to build this farm is 13 by 5 blocks of height by 14. And the materials required to build this farm are the following. The thing with this farm is that we're going to obtain a different assortment of flowers depending on the specific place where you build it, and of course it's going to be dependent on the biome where you build it. For starters, we're going to see the first two flowers I already showed you. The forest biome is one that is very convenient, and these flowers pretty much grow on most biomes, because in this biome only those two flowers grow, as you see here, where we have a lot of seeds, some poppy and some dandelion. Don't forget that the dandelion is another food source for the rabbits, and we can reproduce them. One of the most common biomes in Minecraft is plains. Here we're going to obtain the next flowers. On the plains we're going to obtain these 5 flowers. As we already saw, we obtained the poppy and dandelion. We can also obtain the cornflower, the oxeye daisy, and the azure bluet. For example, building this farm in this specific location, we obtain for 1 stack of bone meal this. Next, we're going to obtain the blue orchid. To obtain this flower, we have to come to the swamp with some bone meal. When we apply it to the ground, we'll see that we obtain some grass and this particular flower. We just build exactly the same farm and turn it on. And in the test applying 1 stack of bone meal, the results were these. Some seeds, and almost 3 stacks of flowers. The next flowers we're going to see are these that are 2 blocks high. The sunflower, the lilac, the peony, and the rosebush. On the video where we analyzed 7 microfarms that use bone meal, we saw this is all that is required to produce these particular flowers. When we flick the lever, we start generating copies of these flowers. You see that with the sunflower we can obtain the yellow dye, with lilac we obtain magenta, with peony we obtain pink, and with the rosebush we obtain the red. The game has 4 types of tulips: red, orange, white, and pink. In the next biome we can also obtain lily of the valley and the allium. With the red tulip we can obtain the red dye, with the white tulip, light grey. The orange tulip gives us orange dye, and with the pink tulip, the pink dye. With lily of the valley we obtain white, and with the allium we obtain magenta. Now we find this microbiome, a flower forest. This biome has oak, birch, and a lot of flowers. A characteristic of this biome is that if we apply bone meal, depending on the area, we're going to obtain these particular flowers. For example, in this small area, we have the pink tulip, and if we apply some bone meal, the most probable thing is that we're going to obtain also more pink tulip. Here we have some orange tulip, and again if we apply this bone meal, we're going to obtain the same flowers. For example, here probably we are already in an area of red tulips. And varying the location of this particular farm, we're going to obtain a different configuration of flowers. For example, in this area we have a lot of orange and red tulips, and let's say we build this farm a few blocks up and run an experiment using bone meal. For example, in this area, using a space of 9x9, we obtain this. Some red tulips, a few white ones, dandelions, and some poppy. For example, let's move a few blocks, and here the configuration is a bit different. For example, in this area we find Semalium, and the results were similar, with a few azure bluets. Now in this position we're going to obtain a few oxidaceae. Here we receive a different assortment of tulips. So our recommendation is building several of these platforms, varying the area, varying the height, and you will see what specific configuration of flowers you are going to obtain. So building 4 or 5 of these, we're going to obtain a very wide variety of flowers. Just so we can see how the configuration of flowers is generated on this biome, the flower forest, I built this big platform of grass blocks. So one time over and over again, I apply bone meal, and with commands remove all the grass on the area, and just left the flowers. So this, for example, is how the distribution of flowers on this biome looks like. The flower we're going to obtain on a specific block is dependent on what area it is located in. If we come over here, we're going to see this biome, so we're going to obtain a lot of poppies. Here you can see a lot of oxidaceae. Just surrounding this small area, you're going to see a lot of pink tulips. Surrounding the pink ones, we have some white ones. On the other line, some orange, then red tulips. And like that. Just moving from one zone to another, you're going to see that different assortment of flowers is going to be generated. Just over here you're going to see a whole field of cornflower, but if we flick F3, you're going to see that the biome here is meadow. So now let's move to another flower forest, and we're going to see here 2 platforms. But this is not only dependent on the X and Z axis, it is also dependent on the Y. So you're going to see just elevating that platform, we're going to obtain a different assortment of flowers. Even if we go to ground level, this is going to vary. I must admit that this Lily of the Valley is one of the most difficult to obtain flowers. We will think that if we came to this area where some Lily of the Valleys are displayed, and we apply bone meal, we will obtain more of them, but we didn't. Instead, different flowers are generated. But according with what I investigated, these Lily of the Valley actually generate on these biomes, but the area where they appear are very small. Alternatively, we can buy some from the wandering trader. So we already covered these 5 flowers. Those 2 flowers, and the tulips from the flower forest, the blue orchid from the swamp. We have these 2-block high flowers, which are not difficult to find. Now let's see how to farm these flowering azalea and flowering azalea leaves. So we come to an area where built of these blocks were consumable by moss, for example grass blocks, dirt, stone. So we just need to place this moss block, apply some bone meal, and you will see that some blocks spread out. One of the blocks generated by this process is the flowering azalea, and this small bush which is azalea. Either of the 2 is going to work. We just need to apply bone meal to these bushes, and we're going to obtain this azalea tree. Then we just take these shears and start to cut down the leaves. That way we obtain these flowering azalea leaves. And both the flowering azalea as well as the flowering azalea leaves can be pollinized by bees. It would have been very interesting that the spore blossom could be considered as a flower, but bees do not pollinize it. Anyway, this isn't a renewable resource. These are only located in the lush caves, and we must obtain it one by one. Now we're going to see the wither rose. Each time the wither boss kills a mob, one of these flowers is generated as an item. Yes, a farm can be built. Here you're going to see a wither cage, and a tutorial to build this farm can be easily found. It only consists on a way to feed this wither with enderman, and each time an enderman is killed by the wither, it turns into a wither rose. All the products are collected down here, where we have some ender pearls and some wither roses. So the wither rose has two applications. If we place them up here, it's going to start to receive damage. And also this rose is going to help us to obtain the black dye. Now with version 1.20, we have been introduced to a new type of flowers, which are the pink petals, the cherry leaves, the torch flower, and the pitcher. With the pink petals we obtain the pink dye, with the torch flower we obtain the orange dye, I do not recommend that, and with the pitcher pod we obtain the cyan dye, also not recommended. So first we find a biome, a cherry grove, where you're going to see all these fields all covered with pink. A very simple farm to reproduce these pink petals is this one, the same as the 2 block high flowers, a dispenser, an observer, a lever, and a redstone dust. That way we obtain one of these for each bone meal piece. By the way, this can be very productive, unless you don't want to build one of these farms. To produce so many petals, we can build our traditional 9x9 flower farm. Again, if we place it on this biome and click the lever, we obtain a lot of flowers. The result of one stack of bone meal is this. Now to obtain the cherry leaves, we just need to come with our shears and cut down some of these blocks. Or obtain a sapling, go to our base, and with bone meal we can obtain a tree. But more interesting even are these flowers, torch flower and the pitcher. Both are very prehistoric flowers that can be obtained using sniffers. So now I'm going to show you a very simple farm we can build. We just need this big space to place the sniffers. It doesn't need to be a hole like this, we can just use fences. By the time being, the sniffers are going to dig out this, the torch flower seeds and the pitcher pods. So these guys are just going to roam around the area, and once in a while they're going to dig out one of the seeds. We're going to see this animation, where the sniffer starts to detect something and is going to search for the seed. Then he's going to lie down and start to dig out. So each alley is programmed to search one of these specific seeds, and when it detects it, it takes it to the storing area. So this redstone is not complicated. We just have this chest here, with a hopper feeding it, over it a node block, being activated constantly by a redstone, and a 2 observer clock. And inside this node block we have a hopper minecart, which is going to collect anything that lands over this block, or around it. So we just need one alley with each of these seeds. For example, this one has the torch flower seed, and the other one has a pitcher pod. Just remember that the torch flower seed are the ones used to reproduce these animals, and that way we obtain a sniffer egg. Finally, when we have enough of this, we plant them on farmland. And when they fully grow up, we can just harvest them to plant them on another place. For example, this one we can place it here. And here we have the pitcher flowers, which is continually growing. This one, for example, is age 2, this one is age 1, age 4 is the fully grown one. Here, for example, I have 3. So in case of this farm, we can just come here and do AFK. And if we have a lace, they're going to be in charge of collecting everything. And since this farm actually requires a big area, I think that the lace are the best collecting system. Well, this has been Big Wow 61, and this has been a review about how to find and obtain each of the flowers in the game. I will be watching.